We share our experiences because because we say, there are just things that you should look out for in a coaching relationship. And then there are things that have informed the way we go into coaching. Actually, one of our clients said that to us once when they read our coaching contract. They were like, "Oh, you've made it very clear you are not our therapist and you are not here
Yes,
for
exactly.
therapy."
Welcome to Purposeful Podcasting. I'm Wendy.
And I'm Krystal. This podcast is meant to share how we and other entrepreneurs bring together purpose and passion to leverage profit in our businesses.
We are shining a light on adventure-loving, purpose-driven, action-minded, authentic, and rebellious entrepreneurs.
Just like us.
So join us as we talk about business and life and everything in between. Hello there, and welcome to this week's episode of Purposeful Podcasting. I am Wendy, and I'm here with Krystal, who could say hello if she wants. Yeah, exactly. We're finally getting that whole thing down pat. And this week's episode is a bit interesting. I'll give a little bit of the backstory before we jump right into what it ultimately is going to be. Not too long ago, I came across podcasts and an email and all sorts of stuff from a coach who I had greatly respected and had actually discovered and turned to during the summer of 2020 with the George Floyd summer. And really, really relied on her expertise, empathy, just to really help guide me through that really difficult time, I guess, for many of us.
Mm-hmm.
I came across what really knocked me to the core. Without getting into great detail, she has a podcast and an email list and all this stuff. And I saw an email, which was an apology. Now, let me back up just a little bit to say that I am a Jewish American. And this particular stretch of fall into winter, I was like, wait, what is this now? Winter has been very difficult on a lot of levels. This particular person is a DEI, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion coach, who, again, I really had leaned on her, not personally, but actually I did a course of hers. And I had always thought and really believed that part of this DEI grouping as a Jewish American, which is a very small minority in the US and in the world, would be included. Anyway, so I get this email, which was apologizing for a podcast, which then I went and listened to the podcast. It hit so many nerves. And in conversation, Krystal and I were talking about what ultimately is what this podcast is about. What kind of are our deal breakers when it comes to coaches? I realized that Rebel on the Go, or when I started as an entrepreneur, that's almost 8 years ago, which is so crazy to me. Yes, it was. Well, wait a second. 2016. Yeah. In April of 2024, it'll be 8 years. So 7.5 years.
Wow.
Isn't that ridiculous? It's just so ridiculous. I know. I'm feeling beyond old. That's crazy. That over this time period, I have had a coach in one shape, form, or another. Yes. So not only do I coach, but I have coaches because I think that's the way it's supposed to be. But that's a whole other conversation.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, so I think that the nature of this particular podcast had to do with, what are our deal breakers for having coaches? And this is really from a personal perspective. So I will be quiet now and let you get a word in edgewise.
No, but it was important to kind of set the scene on how we got here, because I think that when you are in the online space, I think investing in coaching is really, really important. And I also think that finding coaching that is one worth your money, and I'm not saying affordable, because there are all kinds of ranges of coaching packages and opportunities and things out there. And I know programs that are several $1,000s that I think would be worth every penny. And I know programs that are several $1,000s that are absolute shit. Right. And I think so I think that it's hard to find a program that is worth your money, where you get a return on your investment, I guess is a better way to put it, and where the coach is credible and that you have an alignment in values. Right. And that's what happened here. You know, we invest a lot of our time and money because we have a love of learning and because we have natural curiosity. We're always signing up for programs. We think that's interesting. You did this Dare to Lead program last year that I'm dying to get into in the next year.
You have to.
And I'm finishing up another certification right now. You have certifications coming out the wazoo on different things. And it's because we are constantly driven by curiosity, and we find these things are interesting and we want to be better so we can be better for our clients, right? Like that's really what it comes. I mean, I don't think that's totally what it comes down to. I think it's mostly that we are very natural learners and love to do that.
Right.
But I also think we're drawn to the community of coaches as well. And I think what struck a core nerve here for you is very similar to an experience. I mean, it's not similar at all, because I think what struck the nerve with you is very much more personal than what it did with me. But it's when you realize that you're in a toxic environment that you don't feel safe in. And I think that that's a big flag in the coaching world, because the coaching world can sometimes feel very cult-like and very, you're either with us or against us. And I think that when you look at a coaching relationship and you're ready to take the money to invest in coaching, because when you get into the online space, it kind of goes into this natural progression of, I have an idea, I dabble in a couple DIY courses, and then you invest into like either into coaching, whether it's through a group program or private coaching. So it's a natural progression we all go through. I think it's really, really important. We all have coaches for different things or different needs in our life. To me, what was a flag in your situation, because it felt very personal to you, and it was really, I think, hard when you realize that I've invested a lot of time and money into somebody who now I don't feel like I'm in alignment with. And I think that always feels disappointing. So at the same time, then what do you do? And then I think that for me, when I felt that way, and we can go into that story later, but I think when I felt like I was in a coaching environment that was toxic or that didn't feel like a good fit anymore, it turned me off from coaching for a long time.
Interesting. Yeah.
And then I was like afraid to invest the money for a long time, invest the time, kind of at a detriment to myself, honestly.
Oh, totally. Yes. I think that it's very interesting. I absolutely appreciate what you just said on many levels. One thing is really nailing down, and this is one of what I consider to be my deal breakers, is there's so many people out there who are consultants who slap on a coaching label, but really are lacking the skills, the coaching skills that are needed. Because it's like, you know, here's a DIY program. That's actually by definition not real. That's not really coaching.
No.
And there's also, you know, coaches who sell programs. Well, while a coach can specialize and, you know, really hone in a niche, the definition of a coach is someone who is in a coactive relationship with you, who listens, actively listens, asks questions, delves into, you know, really you as a person, and provides accountability, provides motivation, those types of things. But you're doing the work. It's not, you know, and I don't mean, oh, today we're going to look at our, you know, our marketing plan. It's not necessarily, or today we're going to work on our marketing. You know, it's not necessarily generally that type of coaching. And I think that that's one of the things that ultimately has disappointed me. And I do think that your use of that word was absolutely spot on. I think that that's kind of a twofold thing. that it is really like the lack of the coaching skills, and also really the focus on, I'm really a consultant, but I'm saying I'm a coach, which to me, why not just say that, like, we joke around where, I'm switching my hat now. I have my consulting hat on.
Oh,
I'm
all the
putting my
time.
coaching. Exactly. So I think I think that this is, and coaching is such an important part of growing as a person, and having a good quality coach that you really are in sync with is, to me, so important. I look back and I realize that the pitfalls that I've had over my almost 8 years match up to who I had as a coach at that particular time. And, it's interesting because I think about like shared values. And I even went so far this morning before we hopped on, to look up my VIA, which is Values in Action Strengths, which is an assessment that actually we use a lot as one of those foundational starting point. Things like perspective and fairness and curiosity. Those are the types of things that I possess that I really need to have it's like almost I want my coaches to take this as well. But anyway, I digress. Now that I think about it, I think that, yeah, they have. Anyway, but it's also, and this I think is super important right now, is that I need that cultural sensitivity that, I think I possess that really came out, over the past three and a half years. And I also need that person to have, to be respectful and empathetic and also curious, aware of what's going on in the world. Really, avoidance of stereotype is huge for me. And, what's interesting is I had on my list for 2024 to actually purchase one of this person's programs. I have been following a particular program for quite some time now. And then I'm like, wow, there's no way in hell I'm giving her any of my money, because and I believe very much in, we have the right to say what we want. But when it comes to adding in the elements of respect and possibly empathy, those are so huge on my list that, and what I heard, was, oh my gosh, no, no, no. And I don't think, and being that there was a follow-up email that says, hey, I'm sorry, I apologize for what I said, but not really, leads me to believe that I wasn't the only one. But anyway.
Oh, I didn't realize there was a follow-up email too. Well, and I think, so what had happened too was that this person said something incredibly offensive on the podcast and then in an email, and then I think got backlash, and then they sent up the follow-up apology email. And we've talked about this before where, when do you have the right to speak up politically? How do you do that? And I'll link that episode in the show notes. But I think that you and I agree, I don't necessarily need my coach to believe in everything that I believe in. I don't
absolutely not. I actually don't want that.
I don't want that because I need diversity of world viewpoints. I have a very diverse group of friends that swing differently culturally and politically and all across the board.
Right.
And I think that helps me as a person grow and learn more. And I think that you hit the nail on the coffin, not the nail on the coffin, but I think you hit the point really, really home when you said that respect must be in the cornerstone of those things. You can have a differing political opinion than me. You can feel differently about the state of global events in the world as me. And we can have different conversations, because I think that holding that tension of both and is so important. Yay, Brene Brown. Like, that's so important to all of us to remember. But you have to be respectful and you have to be empathetic to what my viewpoint is. And at the point that you cannot do that, then all bets off. And I think that's and I think that's interesting when you get into coaching relationships that are toxic environment. I think one of the first things that is non-existent in that is respect and empathy.
It's interesting because one of the other deal breakers for me is coaches that have that very much an egocentric approach. And it's almost like the savior complex, like it's my way or the highway, that, it's more about the coach than the client. And I think in a lot of ways, and I have mad respect for, for coaches. This is not really an easy profession necessarily. And it requires a great deal of vulnerability and not to mention your foundational skills. So it's almost like this egocentric approach is like the Brené's armor. You put it on and you don't want to feel vulnerable, or you don't want to feel less than, that kind of thing. But it's one of those things, again, where if it's all about the coach rather than the client, then that's where you don't have to have respect. You don't have to have empathy. A lot of coaches are so focused on their foundational skills, whatever that may be, that they really kind of lose touch with what really makes a good coach. And that is the empathy, the respect. You have to build trust if you actually want to get work done. I also just think so strongly that life is not one size fits all. There's also, an inflexibility. If I come to a coaching session and I've just had a really shitty day, and you're like, well, did you achieve this week's goal? And I'm like, well, actually, no. And I want to actually get into it or talk about it. And I'm cut off and I'm like, well, you didn't do what you were supposed to do. My answer to that generally is fuck you, on a lot of levels. And I've had coaches who have cut me off at the knees. You're just making excuses. Well, maybe I am, but cut me some slack, kind of thing.
Well, and
so
clearly don't know you and how to properly motivate you to get done what needs to get done.
Yes.
I mean, when you think about, that one size fits all coaching thing, I think a lot of coaches, and I'm using air quotes here, the audience can't see me, but when coaches or consultants really are not coaching on anything, they're consulting their method to other people.
Exactly.
And that might work for other people. And it also might have been something that worked 10 years ago, but the climate of online business and marketing and everything has changed exponentially in the last 3 years, even in the last year, this year, with the introduction of AI and other things that are happening out there. The online landscape has changed. The economic climate has changed. And so what worked 3 years ago isn't necessarily going to work now. And the problem is that a lot of coaches get up into rooms and they go on and on about this methodology, and then they berate people for not making it work. And one, it's using shame as a tactic to motivate people, which is never a good way to go. And then two, they're not in the arena anymore. So they're not actually practicing what they're preaching anymore. Because even they know they can't do just this thing. There are other things they need to do to market their business. And I always think a telling thing is when you look at a coach and you look at, I would ask myself, like, who's benefiting the most in the relationship? And by that, I mean, when I look at other coaches out there, and then you look at their clients, okay? Who's benefited the most from this relationship? Is it the coach or the client? And I think in a lot of times, I think about how many times have I been in a room with a coach and the only person benefiting in that room is the coach. The clients are not doing better in business. The clients are not, I think about rooms I've been in where...
And I would even argue that that's not a coaching situation or a coaching scenario right there.
I know for me, I signed up for a coaching program, right?
Yeah.
I used air quotes. My experience with it was I had signed up for a year-long coaching program. It included a retreat. I went on said retreat. I did said program, and I came back from the retreat like really effed up. Like it just messed up. I remember talking to my friend who is a licensed therapist and said, sounds to me like you were in a room with a narcissist surrounded by a bunch of codependents. And I'm like,
Oh
100,
my
110%.
Well, that is such an interesting thing, because one of the things that also absolute deal breaker is a coach is not a therapist,
Yep.
or a palm reader for that matter.
Right.
I think of a coach who suggested my relationship with my dead brother wasn't particularly good. And I was just like, wow, that was just, wow. Coach is not a therapist. A coach can be an empathetic ear. A
Mhm.
coach can be an understanding, like, well, you may want, if this is truly what's blocking you, you may want to see a therapist. But
Mhm.
in the meantime, let's take small steps to keep you in the right direction, that sort of thing, which makes complete sense. But I don't pay a coach for therapy. And actually, the difference when your insurance will cover the therapy, your insurance don't cover the coach.
No. We have a whole other podcast on this too, right? Link in show notes. But I think you're right, because a coach is bringing you, we had this conversation yesterday, actually, a coach's baseline forward.
Yes, exactly.
And therapy
Exactly.
is to help bring you back to baseline.
Exactly.
And I think that you can have, like, there's just no doubt in our relationship with our clients, the personal bleeds into the professional, and personal things
Well, and I think
come
that's
up.
normal.
But I think that the difference is that we are very conscious, and I do think we are very conscious and intentional in those moments to be an empathetic ear, to encourage and validate feelings, and then to bring it back to how can we help this with your business moving
Right.
forward. If you're having issues with like a spouse that's not being supportive of your business, right? Like, I'm not your marriage counselor, but I can talk to you about like different things and tactics that we have used and that we encourage people to use when it comes to talking about runways, setting valid expectations of business, things like that. And so it's just kind of understanding what the difference is, and then, but not turn around and manipulating the situation to say, oh, you should get a divorce. Oh, you should, like that's not our place as a coach, because I'm not a licensed marriage therapist.
Exactly. Exactly.
These are big flags for me when you hear people try and diagnose your relationship with your brother.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah.
there's like a myriad of completely effed up things I've heard over the years that I feel like I could make a list and then have our audience
might be
add to that list.
right. Yeah. That
Is
would be
so,
slightly entertaining.
it's so entertaining, but it's disturbing because these people
Right.
are deemed successful. And it's also why I encourage other people as well to go into coaching or go into this profession, because if you do have a real call to help people and a real call, and you do have skills and the
Yes.
professional certification
Yes.
to do it, the world of coaching needs more good, ethical coaches. And
Yes. Yes. Yes.
and so we share our experiences because we say, there are just things that you should look out for in a coaching relationship. And then there are things that have informed the way we go into coaching. Actually, one of our clients said that to us once when they read our coaching contract. They were like, oh, you've made it very clear you are not our therapist and you are not here
Yes.
for
Exactly.
therapy. And we laughed and we said, well, that's because we have witnessed the pitfalls of that situation. And other people come from other coaches as well, and might have had other experiences or other relationship dynamics with a previous coach that were unhealthy, that we don't want brought into this coaching environment as well.
Right.
And so we really just kind of set that boundary up front so people are aware, this is what we're here for. And this is what we're not here for, not because we don't care about our clients or want to help our clients, but because we are not capable of helping them in that way. I think that's the way we hold respect and empathy in that situation. When you're not qualified to handle certain situations, you can really F people up.
And that is very true. And that is just so counterproductive and counterintuitive to what we're here to do. The thing that I think of is, okay, someone's listening to this podcast. You're like, okay, what should I be doing? What should I be looking at? I was thinking that the first thing to do is really have an idea of kind of who you are, what people you like to work with, and what exactly is it that you think you need. Now, a coach may ultimately say, oh, that's what you need, and that's what you want. It's not necessarily what you need, and they may guide you in a slightly different direction, or solve that problem or answer that question and say, okay, now let's look at which is actually what you're really truly paying people to do for you. Coming into something with an open mind, I think it's the greatest reward for yourself. But you want to make sure that someone is willing to set clear expectations. Like, we don't coach. I mean, we're not, wait a second. Like, we're not therapists.
Yeah.
That
right.
type of thing. You want someone who really listens to you. If you do 90% of the talking in a session, that's actually a really good thing.
Yeah.
Because while they bring certain skills to the table, it's really, you probably know what those skills are. Okay, I'm a marketing coach and I have a specific marketing strategy. Okay, you probably have a good idea what it is, but how is that going to work for you? And how is that implemented? So if you end up doing the majority of the talking, that's actually a really good session. Mm-hmm. And if you walk away with, wow, I feel so much better. Actually, that's a huge win. So someone who really is listening to you, and then at the end can wrap things up. And it's perfectly appropriate to have, well, if you set it up ahead of time as part of your expectations, homework.
Yep.
Assignments, things of that nature, really add to the experience. I've had coaches who who it is like a therapy session where you talk, whether it's once a week, once a month, and that's it.
Yeah.
And where's the accountability? Like motivation, it's like, hey, but now most of us have Voxer, which is such a fabulous tool.
I love. But because I think that what's cool about like good coaching relationships that I've had and that I have now have been, like you said, they listen, they ask really good questions.
Mm-hmm.
Because, and I tell this to clients all the time, I ask a lot of questions. So I tend to be the marketing half in our coaching relationship with our clients. I can give you a marketing strategy that will shoot you to the moon. But if that's not where you want to go,
mm-hmm.
then it's a waste of your time and my time. And actually, we'll just end up leaving everybody frustrated because it's out of alignment. It's out of whack. The client procrastinates. I'm frustrated that they don't get it done. It would make me a crappy coach.
Right.
But by asking the questions of, what personal conflicts might have with this, Wendy's great at asking, what's your runway? What resources do you have to put into this plan? You're now setting a realistic strategy that shoots you to New York or that shoots you to Canada. Okay. Not necessarily to the moon. And so
gotcha. I was like, wait, where are you going with this?
And so, it just changes the direction of the conversation of where you want to go. And then, a good coaching relationship in my mind helps cut through all of that noise, because as online entrepreneurs, as online business owners, we are constantly inundated. How many emails, I wonder, do I have in my inbox right now from people still selling me stuff because they extended their Black Friday sale or whatever? Just so many things. You can get this copywriting accelerator course, and you can get this thing to write your sales page, and this AI tool, and this thing. And I mean, it goes on and on and on and on. And how do I know what's best for me and for my business, and what direction should I go? And I think what's cool about a great coaching relationship is that a coach knows you, knows your strengths, knows what's going to be knows where you want to go. They kind of help cut through that noise to say, yeah, that investment might help you I would stay away from that and not touch it with a 10-foot pole.
Exactly. And I think of actually a coach who I still work with now, actually we both work with, who has her own signature program. I cannot remember the last time that signature program ever has come into a conversation. It has been it's been a long time. And instead of, while that may work right now, or it may not, it's the ability, as you said, to cut through the noise and see what is best for the client, as opposed to, well, this is what I sell. And again, that actually has an incredibly important space and place in the ecosystem we operate in. But that's a consultant.
Yeah.
And that is, someone who can come into your business and diagnose a problem and fix it. That is not your personal coach to actually, ultimately get your set and achieve your goals. Not that they don't set and achieve goals, just in a different way. And actually, I think of consultants as more of like a corporate thing, whereas a coach is more of a one-on-one personal thing, where it's, more specific to the individual needs. But I think we all may have different definitions with that. But, well, I'm feeling better. This has just been hanging on me a bit too much. And now it's time to put it to bed and move on.
Or not. We can keep talking about it tomorrow. It's fine.
No, that's okay. I'm just done. I'm just done. Okay. So until next week.
Until next week, leave us a message, shoot us a DM, or reply to our email that went out about this podcast and tell us about what flags do you look for in coaching relationships? What are deal breakers for you? And if you are looking for a coach with an empathetic ear and to be respectful of your business needs, book a call. And until next week, bye.
Bye-bye. Thanks for listening. Be sure to subscribe and leave us a rating.
But only if you liked it. Otherwise, just keep it to yourself.
You can learn more about purposeful podcasting on our website at serendipitousrebel.com.
And if you have topics you'd like to hear about, be sure to submit them on our website or DM us on social media.